with us. But all the P5, if they are not involved, they were aware of what we are doing, and we made sure that they were on top of what is happening. And that was very important. We had the political representation and mediation on the ground during the conflict. There was continual dialogue with senior politicians and officials, especially the US, UK, and EU. Their stance and support helped to unify the international support. The Russian and the Chinese and the French were involved through the EU, and the Russians and the Chinese were also being kept up to date and abreast with what was going on. The international organizations, the UN and Arab League, were also more supportive from the start, really. The UN Security Council Resolution 2014 in October 2011 was a turning point by signaling international support. It really added impetus. Last but not least, the appointment of Mr. Jamal bin Umar as the UN Special Envoy to Yemen was an inspired choice. His efforts helped to finalize the mechanism of implementation. Having been intimately really involved with this conflict mediation process from start to finish, I would like to pass some main lessons for the future. There is no such thing as successful outcome without the full agreement of all parties. None of the negotiating parties will wish to stray too much from their own position. Thus, there will be black and white, and it is the mediator's task to find a shade of gray that is acceptable to all. This is not easy, but absolutely essential. Another lesson is that all parties must be prepared to stay the course, to seek an agreed outcome. This will involve determination, persistence, energy, and positive thinking from the mediator. There should be no revisiting of initial stances. I had to remind those around the table all the time of the 5 principles. Absolutely key to any mediation process is trust. I cannot overemphasize. Without which, the whole process is undermined. Trust must be at all levels. Should trust the process. Trust between opposing negotiators, the difficulties of which cannot be overestimated. Trust between negotiators and the mediator. Trust between all at the table and their own principle. They must speak with authority. Lastly, but most importantly, trust in the outcome and that all parties will abide by the agreement. The mediator must show unbiased all the time. The regional mediator must be acceptable to all parties. Sometimes there is difficulty in trusting someone who is too close to home. I suspect that is why so many mediators come from totally neutral areas. However, language, culture, and close knowledge of the dispute are essential. The character of the senior mediator is also a key ingredient of trust and being a good facilitator. We must be seen neutral. We realize that also an implementation mechanism must be developed to build the confidence. This is a major lesson. We cannot just have an initiative but must have a document that goes with it, specifying who to do what and when to do it, with some kind of accountability. From lessons to a thought. Regional resilience needs further study. Yemen is an excellent example of how regional friends can assist each other. So I wonder why it doesn't happen more often. We often see a conflict either within a nation or between nations escalate immediately to the UN, EU, NATO, Arab League, or some other major bloc for resolution. Not only in the case of political conflicts, but also in the case of crisis, economical, environmental, humanitarian, terrorism, where the regional resilience does not provide the bounce required. I know there will be factors such as trust and vested interests, which sometimes inhibit local or regional mediation, or lack of mechanisms, training, or pre-planning, or even data that prevent the quick response required for dealing with disasters or crises regionally. My thoughts are based on instinct, but I do believe a study might lead to conclusions on whether regional resilience is a route that could be pursued in a methodical fashion. Could, for instance, mechanisms be in place to facilitate such assistance? I don't think Chapter 8 of the United Nations Charter covers it all. Again, it's just a thought. Ladies and gentlemen, I have spoken enough and too long. As we look to the future of Yemen, I can only say that while the mediation phase was not easy, the implementation phase, as we all know, faces many challenges. There is still much to be done. The GCC continues to give full support for phase 2 of the implementation of the initiative. We are assisting Yemen for development through co-chairing the Friends of Yemen and facilitating the donation through the donors group. Both efforts are led by Saudi Arabia. In Yemen, we have at least crossed the first hurdle. It is vital now for the unified international community to continue to support Yemen fully, persistently, and into the long term. By doing this, hopefully the process which we in the GCC began will end in eventual and complete success. If we want to show that peaceful resolution for a conflict can work, we must help Yemen. If we want to combat terrorism, we must help Yemen. If we want to combat privacy, we must help Yemen. If we want to combat organized crime, we must help Yemen. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope now you have a better understanding of the GCC, its priorities, and the part we played in Yemen, a role which, of course, was completely consistent with our overall goals of security, economic enhancement, human development, crisis management, and international engagement. This concludes my very long remarks. We have another challenging year ahead of us. I hope to see you next year, and we are all a year wiser, with more success stories, and the world is a better place. Thank you, and God bless you. Sorry. Oh, my apologies for not waiting for you.
Excellency.